Please be seated. Is the government ready to call their next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The government calls Cassandra Ventura.
All right.
Remain standing and please raise your right hand.
Good morning, Miss Ventura.
Good morning.
Just so you know, you can drink that water that's on the stand.
Oh, thank you.
How old are you?
I'm 38 years old.
What is your occupation?
I'm a musician, an entertainer.
Ms. Gavin, could you please publish Government Exhibit 2A-101 in evidence for all the parties in the courtroom? Ms. Ventura, who is depicted in Government's Exhibit 2A-101?
Sean Combs.
How do you know Sean Combs?
We were in a relationship for a little over 11 years.
If I refer to Sean Combs as Sean today, will you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
You said you were in a relationship with Sean for a little over a decade. During that period, were you together consistently, or were there breaks during the relationship?
There were breaks.
During that same time, were there times where you got along well with Sean?
Yes.
Were there times where you did not?
Yes.
Were there times when you had arguments with Sean?
Yes.
Without getting into the subject matter of those arguments, can you describe what arguments with Sean were like?
If they were violent arguments, it would usually result in some sort of physical abuse, and dragging and just different things of that nature.
When you say physical abuse, can you tell me what types of things that Sean did that hurt you physically?
I mean, he would mash me in my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head if I was down.
How frequently was Sean physical with you during your relationship?
Too frequently.
Were you ever injured as a result of these incidents?
Yes.
What kind of injuries did you have as a result of Sean being physical with you?
Usually pretty similar. I would get knots in my forehead, busted lips, swollen lips, black eyes. The whites of my eyes would be red. Bruises all over my body, just depending.
Okay, Ms. Gavin, could you please pull up and publish for the courtroom Government Exhibit 10C-103 at 33 seconds? Ms. Ventura, directing your attention to the screen in front of you, do you recognize who's depicted in that still image?
Yes, that's me and Sean.
Do you recognize the location recorded in this still image?
Yes, that's the Intercontinental Century City.
What were you and Sean doing at the Intercontinental Century City at the time of this image was captured?
We were having an encounter that we call a freak-off, and I was leaving there.
We're going to get back to that specific incident later on. You just mentioned the word freak-off. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Who introduced you to the term freak-off?
Sean did.
And how did you learn what a freak-off was?
Within the first year of our relationship, Sean proposed to me this idea, this sexual encounter that he called voyeurism, where he would watch me have intercourse and sexual activity with a third party, specifically another man.
And how did the term freak-off come about?
I honestly don't remember exactly how it came about.
Can you describe for the jury, when you say the term freak-off, what that entails?
It basically entails the hiring of an escort and setting up this experience so that I could perform for Sean.
And what did the performance involve at a high level?
The performance involved, I'm sorry. It just involved watching, Sean being able to watch me with the other person and actually direct us on what we were doing sexually.
And when you say the other person, who are you referring to?
The third party, the escort or dancer that would be hired.
Who was in charge of all the aspects of the freak-offs you mentioned? The hiring, the setup, etc.?
Eventually, it became a job for me pretty much, to where I knew that if that is something that he wanted to do, I had the contacts to set it up and get a hotel room and all of that. But in the beginning, Sean set it up. He was in charge.
And after it became your job, how did you know what to do?
He would tell me.
When Sean first proposed freak-offs, what was your reaction?
Oh, I just remember like my stomach falling to my butt, like just the nervousness and the confusion in that moment. I think I was 22 at the time. I had just turned 22. I didn't have a concept of how that would be a turn on, but I also felt a sense of responsibility with him sharing something like that with me. So yeah, I was confused, nervous, but also loved him very much and wanted to make him happy. So yeah.
Did you agree to try a freak-off when Sean first proposed one?
I did.
After that, were there more freak-offs?
Yes, there were.
How, if at all, did your willingness to engage in freak-offs with Sean change over time?
I mean, pretty quickly over time. I knew that it wasn't something that I wanted to be doing, especially as regularly as it became. But again, I was just in love and wanted to make him happy.
Well, despite not wanting to do freak-offs, did you continue to engage in freak-offs with Sean?
I did.
And why did you continue to engage in freak-offs with Sean?
He would ask me. He would bring it up at random times, and I think to a point, I just didn't feel like I had much of a choice. I didn't really know what a no would be or what no could turn into.
When you say you didn't know what no could turn into, what do you mean by that?
Making him angry. Very honestly, also making him uncomfortable that I knew this thing and that I no longer wanted to do it. Can you repeat the question?
Sure. You said that you didn't know what no could turn into, and I asked you if you could explain what you meant by that phrase.
Ultimately, at that point, Sean controlled a lot of my life, whether it was my career, the way I dressed, like everything. And I just didn't feel like I had much say in it at the time, being like really super young, naive, total people pleaser. Yeah, I didn't know if he would be upset enough to be violent or if he would write me off and just not want to be with me at all.
What, if anything, were you afraid would happen if you said no to a freak-off?
Well, over time, it turned into the fact that there were actually blackmail materials to basically make me feel like if I didn't do it, that it would be hung over my head in that way, or that these things would become public. I experienced violence with him before that. The abuse started before that, so obviously in the back of my mind.
And Miss Ventura, when you say that the blackmail materials would be hung over your head, what, if anything, were you afraid Mr. Combs, Sean, would do with the blackmail materials?
Release them. Put them out on the internet. He had many resources to do that, so...
And you mentioned that at this point, violence had started. What, if anything, were you afraid would happen physically if you refused to do a freak-off?
I mean, it was always in the back of my mind that I would somehow be hurt by him, but Sean's a really polarizing person, also very charming. So it's hard to be able to decide in that moment, like, what you need when he's telling you what he wants. I just didn't know. I just didn't know what would happen.
Miss Ventura, just to clarify one thing you said you called something blackmail materials. What were you referring to?
Referring to actual videos and photos of the sexual encounters, the escort.
To be clear, that's the freak-offs you mentioned earlier?
Yes.
Okay, and who was depicted in those videos and photos with the escorts?
Me, Sean in some of the videos, yeah.
Okay, we're going to get back to this, but first, I would like to direct your attention to approximately December 2023. What, if any, items did you provide to the government?
I gave them broken laptops, iPads, phones, things that no longer worked, but I kept because I didn't know what was on them.
And what was the approximate time period that these broken electronic devices were from?
It was around the time period of being in a relationship with Sean.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Miss Ventura, I handed you what's been marked for identification as GXB. Do you recognize that I've handed you?
Yes.
Have you reviewed the contents of that drive?
I have.
At a high level, what's on that drive?
Different communications and documents pertaining to this trial.
Are those communications and documents from this electronic devices we just discussed?
Yes.
And did you also review photographs that are contained on that drive?
Yes.
Are those photographs also from the electronic devices we just discussed?
Yes.
And how do you know that the drive I just handed you is the drive that you reviewed before this trial?
Because my initials are on here.
Did you initial the drive after you reviewed it?
I did.
Your Honor, at this time, the government is going to offer some of the materials on that drive. We would offer the exhibits B101 through B112, B201 through B209, B301 through B13, B15 and B16, B315 through B20, B400A through B402, B500A through B503, and B600A through B608, and all subdivisions thereof.
Any objection?
Subject to connection, no objection.
All right, they will be admitted.
Miss Gavin, can you please pull what's up in evidence as government exhibit B105s? Okay, Miss Gavin, could you please pull up and publish for the courtroom government exhibit 10C103 at 33 seconds? Miss Ventura, what's depicted in government exhibit B104?
That is Carrie Morgan, Alice A. Rashi, Sean, and myself, and we're on the outside patio in his room in Las Vegas on that trip.
When you say that trip, which trip to Las Vegas are you referring to?
21st birthday at the VMAs.
When you say at the VMAs, can you explain what you meant of the VMAs?
That was the event that was going on that weekend, the MTV Video Music Awards.
And what, if anything, happened between you and Sean while you were in Las Vegas for your 21st birthday?
A lot of different things happened, but he kissed me in the bathroom of in the bathroom of this actual suite pretty early in the morning. We'd been up, all of us, pretty late.
What was your reaction to Sean kissing you in the bathroom?
I think I was just really confused at the time. Again, young, new artist, just didn't really know the lay of the land when it came to things like that. So in my confusion, just kind of cried and ran out.
When you say you were a new artist who did not know the lay of the land, what did you mean by that?
I just wasn't familiar with having an executive or anybody pay attention to me in that way and be forward at that point. I just didn't really understand it. I was pretty naive, I would say.
When you say that way, can you clarify what you meant by that way?
In a more than friends way, in a sexual way, romantic way.
And at this time, at your 21st birthday, what was your professional relationship with Sean again?
I was signed to his label.
And what happened after Sean kissed you in the bathroom?
I just remember running out and headed back to my hotel. I think I told Carrie about it at the time, but I didn't really share it with anyone.
Did you want Sean to kiss you at your 21st birthday?
No, not at my 21st birthday.
After your 21st birthday in Las Vegas, how, if at all, was your relationship with Sean different?
When we got back to New York, I would just visit with him. He would invite me over to his hotel. I think his apartment at the time was getting renovated, so I went to see him a handful of times.
Which hotel did you go to see Sean at?
The Trump Hotel in Columbus Circle is the one that I remember specifically.
At the same time after your 21st birthday, what, if anything, were you doing with your music career?
I was trying just to continue to go to the next album, continue recording, come up with a concept.
Were you recording another album at the time?
Yes.
What influence, if any, did Sean have on your music career at this time?
At this time, he called most of the shots, well, all of the shots. If I had a new record, I would have come to play it for him. He chose what was next for me, basically.
Before we talk about the hotel, what is the age difference, if any, between you and Sean?
17 years.
And when Sean invited you to the hotel after your 21st birthday, what was your reaction to that invitation?
I'm sorry, can you ask that question again?
Of course. You testified earlier that after your 21st birthday, Sean invited you to hang out with him at hotels in New York. Is that right?
Yes.
How did you feel when Sean invited you to these hotels?
I mean, initially, a bit of nervousness. And then just being a young artist, like excitement, of course, like, okay, we're going to get to talk about music, or we're going to get to talk about what's next. Yeah, I think it's a lot in the time period that's kind of hazy because it was a while ago, but just nervous excitement.
At the meetings in the hotel rooms, what, if anything, did you two talk about music?
Talked about upcoming projects or the actual next album and other things. We started to develop a more comfortable relationship with each other.
And what else, if anything, happened at those meetings at the hotels?
I remember being introduced to the idea of oral sex. It wasn't something that I really understood or did at that point, and basically he taught me how.
When you say he basically taught you how, who is the he in that sentence?
Sean.
When you say you were introduced to oral sex, who introduced you?
Sean.
How did he introduce you to oral sex?
He gave me oral sex.
Did you reciprocate the oral sex?
I did not. I went home and I heard about it from him.
When you say you heard about it from him, can you tell me more about that?
He just kind of made me feel crazy for not reciprocating. At the time, just didn't understand that kind of sexual relationship. I was also still in a relationship with someone else.
When you say you didn't understand that kind of a sexual relationship, can you tell me more about what you mean by that?
I was just so young. I didn't have even the vocabulary for some of the things we talked about. Like, I was just trying to understand it, just completely sexually inexperienced at that point.
And around the same time, in addition to performing oral sex on you, were there ever any occasions where you performed oral sex on Sean?
Later on, yeah.
What was your reaction to the hotel room visits with Sean?
I think it was the nervous excitement that I say. It also just made me feel sneaky. I didn't know. I was curious, but of course ended up there and wanted to be like around him. So that was just it was like, okay, I'm here. Leaving, it was just always confusing because I didn't really know what I felt. I felt like I don't know that I knew that I was making decisions for myself or not. I feel like it was just like, here I am. I don't know how to explain that.
You said you wanted to be around him. Why did you want to be around Sean?
I wanted to be around Sean for the same reasons as like everyone else at the time. It's just this exciting, entertaining, fun guy. I had also happened to have my career in his hands. But yeah, just wanted to spend time. It felt special because not a lot of people got that kind of time with him.
Around that same time, did you also take a trip to meet Sean in Miami?
I did.
What were the circumstances of meeting Sean in Miami?
The circumstances were that I didn't have a party to host in Miami, but wanted to spend that weekend together. And so came up with a flyer that said I was hosting a party at a club in the beach area, Miami Beach area.
When you talk about hosting a party, can you explain to the jury what you meant by that?
Yeah. As an artist, to make extra money, sometimes you're asked to host events at different clubs, sometimes to perform. And that would have fallen in line with me going to a club and making money for just showing up.
And you mentioned a flyer. Who made that flyer?
I don't know exactly who made the flyer, but somebody that we knew that could create it.
Did you make the flyer?
I did not make that flyer, no.
Was the flyer advertising an actual club hosting for you?
No.
Besides yourself and Sean, who else was in Miami with you?
I was there with Carrie Morgan, and Dallas Austin later met us down there.
Who is Dallas Austin?
He's a producer, musician, and friend.
Carrie Morgan is the individual in the photograph we saw earlier?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you and Sean do together on this trip?
Together, this trip was the first time we had sexual intercourse with each other. He rented a boat. I was the first to get there. We just spent some time together, and yeah.
And you testified earlier that at some point after the hotel visits, you had given Sean oral sex. Do you remember that?
Uh-huh.
Was that prior to Miami?
I don't think so. I think it happened there. I'm pretty sure. Everything kind of happened that weekend.
Prior to having sex on that boat, what were you doing on the boat?
Just riding on the boat.
What, if any, alcohol were you drinking?
Drinking wine during the day and then later that night started to take drugs.
What drugs did you take?
On that trip, it was ecstasy. It was a Blue Dolphin ecstasy pill.
Can you explain what you mean by a Blue Dolphin ecstasy pill?
Ecstasy used to, I don't know how it is now, but came as a pressed pill with a little symbol on it, so these had dolphins.
Who gave you the ecstasy that you took on the boat in Miami?
Sean did.
Prior to this Miami trip, had you taken ecstasy before?
No.
Had you ever taken ecstasy unintentionally before?
Yes.
What happened at that time?
I was just out of it with friends laughing, didn't know what it was until a little bit later.
And when you say you had unintentionally taken ecstasy, how did you unintentionally take it?
I took it out of someone else's Gatorade bottle, just drinking Gatorade, but it had drugs in it, but didn't know.
This was before Miami?
This was before Miami, yeah.
Prior to hanging out with Sean Moore, what, if any, drugs did you use?
I smoked marijuana and I drank wine, and yeah.
On this Miami trip, when you took ecstasy intentionally for the first time, how did it make you feel?
It's totally euphoric. It's an experience of something called rolling, where you're just really in that high. So you're super high. You're sensitive to touch. You're just sensitive to all your different senses.
Ms. Gavin, could you please pull up and publish what's in evidence as Government Exhibit B107 and B108 side by side? Ms. Ventura, starting with the photograph on the left, B107, do you recognize who is depicted in that photo?
Yes, that's me and Sean on the boat in Miami.
And is this the boat you just described being on?
Yes.
And turning to the next photograph, B108, do you recognize who's depicted in that exhibit?
Yes, that's Sean and me sitting down. Same boat.
Ms. Gavin, you can take those exhibits down now. After the Miami trip, what was the status of your relationship with Sean?
I would say we were just together. We spent a lot of time with each other after that. Now, I know in hindsight, but I had become like one of his girlfriends after that trip.
When you say you knew in hindsight, what did you know in hindsight?
That Sean Combs had many girlfriends.
At the time, what did you know?
At the time, I didn't know. Can't say naive enough. I knew that we were spending a lot of time together one-on-one and really felt, like we were in a monogamous relationship for a period.
After the Miami trip, was it public that you were dating Sean?
No, not for many years after that.
Why was it not public for many years?
It was always just a discussion of me being his artist and not wanting it to look bad. But I also know it was because of his family and his children and other things, personal things for him.
What are those other personal things, if you know?
His family, yeah. Just, it was always something I understood.
Around the same time, who, if anyone, was publicly linked to Sean romantically?
Around this time, I believe it was Kim, but I think she had also just moved away around that time.
When you say Kim, are you referring to Kim Porter?
Yes.
After you started dating Sean, what changes, if any, did you eventually make in your career management?
Well, my management at the time was also managing the other producer boyfriend that I was with and just looked at this as a major conflict of interest at that point. And yeah, I basically just trusted that we were going to find new people.
And when you say you trusted that we were going to find new people, who was the we in that sentence?
Sean and I.
Just to be clear, did you break ties with your old management after you started dating Sean?
I did, yeah.
After Miami, how did your relationship with Sean evolve?
After Miami, we really at least for my own side of things, I really fell in love with him. I traveled with him anywhere. I was in studio. I was just like a little shadow for a little while.
You were a shadow to whom?
To Sean.
How did Sean treat you at this time?
We had fun. It was just kind of like it's my first real adult relationship. At least what I thought it was. And it was different, so different than anything as you can imagine. His lifestyle was so much different than mine.
How long did you feel this way about your relationship that you described being this, strike that? You said that Sean's lifestyle was different. Can you explain what you mean by that?
I mean, he had assistance at his beck and call. He could get anything done quickly. He had respect from everyone. He traveled quite a bit, so yeah, moving around a lot.
Ms. Gavin, could you please pull up and publish Government Exhibit B112? Ms. Ventura, do you recognize who's depicted in Government Exhibit B112?
Yeah, that's me and Sean.
What's the occasion when this photograph was taken, if you remember?
This was at a strip club in New York. I'm not sure which one, but it was on Halloween.
And what year?
I would say this is probably 2007 or 8. 7.
And Halloween 2007. Is that shortly after your Miami trip?
Yeah, yes.
If you can pull that down, Ms. Gavin, and pull up Government Exhibit B106 and B109, both in evidence side by side, please. Ms. Ventura, starting with the photograph on the left, B106. Who's depicted in B106?
That's Sean and myself.
And where are you?
We're in the back of his car, probably driving to the Hamptons or something.
Approximately what time period is this photograph from?
This is in the first year of us dating, like within that first few months.
And turning to the photograph on the right, B109 again, who is depicted in that photograph?
Sean and myself in the back of the car.
Is that the same car?
Yes.
And what's the approximate time period that this photograph was taken?
It was around the same time.
In the beginning of your relationship?
Yeah.
Miss Ventura, how did you feel about Sean around this time in the beginning of your relationship?
I think I was just enamored by him. We were just having a good time. It was really fun at this point.
How long did you feel that way about Sean?
I don't know exactly how long. It was off and on for many years, yeah.
How, if at all, did your relationship change over time?
I mean, over time, you just get more comfortable with somebody, obviously. But I began to just experience a different side of him, which was his abusive side and his side that was just very controlling over my life and the things that I wanted to do. But there was still love there.
Ms. Gavin, you can take these exhibits down. Ms. Ventura, you mentioned a side of Sean that wanted control over your life. Can you explain to me what you mean by that?
Being an artist at that time, everything moved really quickly for me, and I don't know. There was just no way of keeping up with what was happening, and I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. You had mentioned that one thing that changed about your relationship over time was Sean wanting to have control over your life. I just wanted to ask you what you meant when you said control over your life.
Control was everything from the way that I looked to what I was working on that day, who I was speaking to. Control was kind of like an all-around thing to a certain point.
How often did you talk to Sean in a typical day while you were dating?
All day, throughout the day.
How did you two communicate?
Texts, mostly calls.
What about phone calls?
Phone calls for sure.
And when it became a thing, did you FaceTime?
Yes.
Were there times when you did not answer Sean's messages or phone calls right away?
Yeah.
What happened when you didn't answer his messages or phone calls right away?
He's a bit of an incessant caller, or would have his staff, his assistants, security, somebody, continue to call until you answered or until he found you.
When you say incessant caller, what do you mean by that?
If there's no answer, you just keep going.
Would he do the same thing with text messages?
Yes, that's just his nature.
You mentioned that assistants and security would reach out until they found you.
Correct.
What do you mean by until they found you?
Until they heard from you and knew where you were and could tell him?
Were there times when Sean's staff located you in person?
Yes.
How, if at all, did Sean's move vary from day to day?
It varied depending on what was going on.
How did his mood vary?
I mean, it could change at the drop of a conversation. A bad conversation that I had nothing to do with. It just swung different ways.
I didn't catch that last part that you said. Could you repeat it?
I said it swung different ways quite a bit.
When it swung, could you describe the different moods that you experienced?
Yeah, I mean, agitation, kind of zoning out if he was passionate about a subject. He would just be really focused. Yeah, anger.
How, if at all, did Sean's moods impact you?
I felt like they impacted me pretty greatly. It got to a point where this is me speaking for myself, but like, you know how to handle certain people. You know when to speak to them, you know when to approach them. Like, it's the timing or what you say, how you present something just in order to make sure the person doesn't become upset with you or, change their demeanor with you.
Do you have an example of how Sean's moods impacted you?
I mean, the greatest, the most complicated and greatest examples are the abuse because, like, I also felt at certain times when I knew that it wasn't even about me and make the wrong face. And the next thing I knew, I was getting hit in the face. It was,
When you say the abuse, what abuse are you talking about?
physical abuse in the relationship. But there's also psychological. There's a lot of things going on.
You said something about making the wrong face. Can you explain what you meant by that?
If I wasn't smiling at him the way he wanted, if I just looked a certain way that he didn't like, maybe I was a brat or something, like, he would let me know I need to fix my face or watch my mouth. That was those were the things that were said in the relationship quite often. Fix your face, watch your mouth, or you have a slick mouth.
You also mentioned psychological abuse. Can you describe what you meant by psychological abuse?
That's pretty deep. I mean, psychological is just every day, not knowing who he's going to be when we woke up that day. The entire relationship. I didn't live with him, so we had time apart, and usually it was just like, I always had to be doing something. I don't know if that makes sense. I had what you would call busy work. I needed to make sure I knew what songs I was recording, what things were coming up, and then to have to list them out or I wasn't amounting to anything in my life. So it was a lot. I mean, psychological is an everyday thing, somebody constantly telling you who to be.
When you say someone constantly telling you who to be, are you referring to anyone in particular?
I'm referring to Sean.
You mentioned you always had to be doing something.
Yeah,
Who, if anyone, would check in on you about what you were doing?
he would check in. But I also worked with his engineers and all his people, so everybody was pretty much in tune with everything I was doing.
When you say his engineers and his people, are you talking about people you worked with in the studio?
Studio staff, yeah.
How often was security around Sean?
Oh, all the time, 24/7 security.
When you say trusted assistant, whose assistant are you referring to?
Sean's assistant.
What are some of the names of the security who worked for Sean during the time you two were dating?
There was D-Rock, Bonds, Uncle Paulie, Fahim, Malik, just a lot of people, but those are the main ones I can remember.
When you mentioned trusted assistant, who were some of the trusted assistants?
I mean, in the very beginning, it was David James. It just kind of changed over time. Christina Coram eventually, Neil Dominic, he had a lot of different assistants.
And we'll get back to some of those folks. When you said security kept an eye on you, what did you mean by that?
I mean, they could easily just come over and see if I was home or not. It wasn't really a secret. Yeah, does that make sense?
Was your relationship with Sean always exclusive?
No.
Were there times where you saw other men?
Yes.
Were there times where he saw other women?
Yes.
How did you feel about Sean seeing other women?
I was insanely jealous, but also super young. Didn't get it at all, but I was definitely, young and jealous.
When you say you didn't get it, what didn't you get?
I didn't get that he was him. As he would say, I'm Puff Daddy, and Puff Daddy has many women where, he likes the company of women. And I had to just really learn that over time, despite what he would tell me just between us.
When you say despite what he would tell you, what do you mean?
He made me feel like we were in a monogamous relationship more often than not. It was more figuring out that I wasn't in a monogamous relationship.
How did he make you feel like you were in a monogamous relationship?
I mean, he expected that of me, so I assumed that it was the same, but he definitely would say, I'm not dealing with anyone else, or it's just us.
And when he would say, I'm not dealing with anyone else, was that true?
It could have been sometimes, and then other times, no.
In what city did you live when you first started dating Sean?
I lived in New York.
And after you started dating Sean, in what part of the city did you eventually move to?
I eventually lived on West End, around 60th and West End.
What were the circumstances of you moving to 60th and West End?
It was a gift actually for my birthday. And I remember on my birthday, Sean taking me and my parents up there to show them. It wasn't far from his house, like all of the other houses.
Where did Sean live in relation to the West End apartment?
He was around like 56th is Broadway at the time, so not far.
Who paid the rent for the apartment on West End?
Sean did.
Besides New York, where else and what other cities did you live while you were dating Sean?
Los Angeles. I occasionally were in Miami, but I really didn't live there. Los Angeles and New York.
Did you eventually move full-time from New York to Los Angeles?
Yeah.
And what led your move to LA?
After spending quite a bit of one-on-one time, I knew he really wanted to be closer to his kids. So that was ultimately the move he wanted to make, to be closer to them in LA. Although I wasn't ready to move out of New York, I followed him. I went.
So why did you move?
I moved because I was in love and I wanted to be near him.
And when you said Sean wanted to be closer to his kids, where did his kids live at the time?
His kids lived in California. Or some of them, yeah.
Ms. Gavin, can you please pull up for identification the court and the parties only government exhibits 2B101 and 2B102 side by side? Ms. Ventura, do you recognize what's depicted in 2B101 and 2B102?
Yes, this is one of the houses that Sean and I rented while in LA.
How do you recognize this house?
I spent a lot of time there. I had my 26th birthday there.
Are these fair and accurate photos of one of the houses Sean rented in LA?
Yes.
The government offers government exhibit 2B101 and 2B102.
No objection.
They'll be admitted.